Hello, it's me, Lexi. So today I wanted to discuss a few ways to support your local wildlife, and they're not necessarily hard things to do. Um, some you might have to look into more depending on the area you're at. So for like planting native flowers and stuff and plants, that's something you would have to look into depending on where you're at. Um, so for me, I live in New Brunswick now, so I've been kind of researching what kind of plants are good for the wildlife around here, and planting them as I go. We just moved in here in the summer, so I've just started looking into more things that I can do to support the wildlife that's already around. And it seems like the people who lived here previously did a pretty good job of that because they have a whole bunch of bird houses and stuff all over the place and bird feeders and stuff like that. The only thing I would say is missing is a source of water. So I decided to put out a little bird bath or whatever for the winter, a heated one, just to keep them going. And then for the summer, we're going to be building a bigger pond on our property so we can have like more wildlife. We can have frogs, we can have dragonflies, all stuff like that will come and, have somewhere to drink or live or whatever, just, to support everything that's already around here. As it is, we have tons of butterflies and bees, and we have all kinds of birds. We have hummingbirds that come in the summer. So it's very nice to see. It's very beautiful, the wildlife that we have around here, and I just want to keep that going, and I want to sustain that or whatever, instead of, having flat lawns that don't really do anything for anyone. I guess it's visually appealing. To me, it's not, but that's a whole other conversation there. So yeah, so let's talk about a few things. I've already mentioned a few here. So native flowers and plants. So you have to do a little bit of research, but it's not hard. It's a quick Google search just to quickly find what plants work in your area and what are good for whatever you want to attract, let's say. And also just to, support them. It doesn't really matter what they are. You should be supporting them because everything works together, right? So you want to support all of the creatures, right? Next thing would be the water, like a pond. So a water source. So like I said, I built a pond. I had frogs move in. I'm sure, a lot of other little bugs and creatures move in as well. That was at the property back in Ontario. Now I live in New Brunswick. We're going to be building a very big pond to bring in some more, like some dragonflies and stuff to help keep like mosquitoes and fly populations down somewhat because it's very bad here. But yeah, so like we want to kind of have those, I don't know all the words, but basically they all work together. They all work to control other populations of things, and I can't remember the word, but yeah. Anyway, so water source. You can put a pond or whatever as long as you're putting something in the pond so that if like a bug or a little animal falls in the pond, they have a way to get out. So put like a pile of rocks on one end or something, or sand or something, just anything that where they can have an option to climb out if necessary. Or instead of even putting a pond, you could put like a little bath, at least for the bugs. If you wanted to support the bugs more, you could put a little bath and just fill it with rocks up to the top, and the bees and the other bugs will just go in between the rocks to drink the water without falling in and drowning. So it's a lot safer for them. It's nicer, it's a little thing you can do just to support the bugs in the summer or whatever, depending on where you live. So the next thing is wood. So it depends on how big your property is. For us now, we have 14 acres. We only live on the 3 acres though. The other properties are just woods. So for us, like any trees that fall or any branches or whatever, like we can move them off if we feel we need to, into piles near the woods or whatever, and just leave it as homes for small animals, let's say, and bugs and stuff to live in during the winter or whatever, or in the summer, I don't know. But it's good to provide those habitats, because a lot of the times people are taking all that away, and the animals and bugs and stuff have nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. So it's nicer to just leave piles of wood around. I know it's not always pretty to look at, but you can put them off in the corner of your property or whatever, in the corner of your yard or whatever, so you don't have to see it necessarily. But you're going to be supporting a lot of wildlife that you don't really realize you'd be supporting. So it's good. It works. I know that people don't necessarily always want to do that and have bugs and little animals around, so you don't have to do that, but that is an option. Instead of throwing away a bunch of wood or burning it or whatever. A big one is stop using chemicals. You're killing like a lot of different bugs, and you're just destroying, really, it's impacting a lot of different things, and it's just not healthy in any way. I don't think it's healthy for us. It's not healthy for them. Let's just cut it out completely. No chemicals. There are other ways you can do things. If you want to get rid of certain bugs, you can attract other bugs that will kill those bugs. So just, kind of do a little bit of research if you're interested in doing that. For me, I'd be interested in doing that. I do research and I learn new things all the time, so I like to do that. And the next thing is, in fall, so like if you live in Canada, for me, we get fall. So we have a lot of leaves that fall all over the property, and people immediately want to rake it up and throw it away and stuff. But like, it is so essential for amphibians and bugs for the winter that they have somewhere to hide and somewhere to survive throughout the winter. When you take away that stuff, it is destroying first of all, there's a lot of bugs and stuff that are hiding under debris and leaves and stuff like that. So when you're raking it all up, you're destroying that. You're killing a lot of bugs and getting rid of, homes potentially, So I think it's very important. And I understand that it's not beautiful to look at, but maybe if you change your perspective a little bit, or kind of get, a different point of view, like, you are supporting wildlife, and that in itself is beautiful. So keep that in mind. For me, I feel very strongly about that. I've only recently learned about that, but now I'm very it's very important, because everyone immediately decides to clear out their properties, and it's destroying a lot of bugs and stuff at a rapid rate, and it's just something we want to avoid, right? Because that impacts us. It gets to a point, it goes up the food chain, it impacts everyone, right? So just don't. And the next thing is, I also just recently, I was doing a little bit of research before I made this video, and I found out that dead trees are very good. Like, standing dead trees are good for birds. They create homes for birds, and I'm sure other animals as well, but the birds was the main thing. For woodpeckers and stuff, it creates homes. So if there is a dead tree that is standing and it is not harming, or it doesn't look like it's gonna fall, or it's not directly harming you, or it's in your path or whatever, leave it up. It'll support, different animals and stuff. It's better to just leave it up, unless it is potentially going to fall somewhere that is dangerous, or whatever is going to fall near your property, on your fence or on your house or whatever. Then yes, go ahead and cut it down, but it does provide homes for woodpeckers and other birds. So just keep that in mind. And let's see what else is on here. I wrote a few things down because I can't keep all of it directly in my mind. So I already mentioned making the little containers of water for the bees. It just, especially in the summer, it gets very hot. They need to drink water too. So if you just leave it a little container and put rocks in it so that the bees won't drown and stuff. Because what I've noticed, we had our pool up in the summer, and I was seeing an enormous amount of dead bees every day in the pool, and I was it was very upsetting. It was not nice at all. So it's very important that they have somewhere where they can get a drink of water. and that they won't immediately just get stuck in the water and drown, right? Like, yeah. Anyway, so, and another thing is you might have to do some research. I haven't figured out things that, like non-native species here yet, so I haven't really learned much about that yet, but I plan on doing research on it a little later. So non-native species, so plants or like bugs that are very invasive or whatever, things like that, those are things that you can also remove, like especially the plant one. Like if you see invasive species around, you can just pull them up and throw them away or whatever, or throw them in the trash, I don't really know, dispose of them so that it's not taking up space for native plants, right? Because some of these invasive species are like grow very rapidly and take up, a lot of space. So it's good to catch those early and try and remove them as you can. And that's something I'd really need to learn more about, because I'm not sure what kind of invasive species are around here, like plant-wise and bug-wise. I know that there are some. And a very big one that is very controversial, but I feel very strongly about it. As someone with cats, I have 3. I think it's very important that you keep your cats indoors for a number of reasons. Number one being that you just don't want your cat to get harmed, right? You don't want them to get killed by any predators or cars or anything like that. So it's very important to keep them indoors. Second thing is, they kill a very large amount of wildlife and native species, especially birds, and it is very, very detrimental to the ecosystem and everything. So I think it's just all around, it's better to have your cats indoors. I understand wanting to let them out and give them more space and all that, but you can create catios. As I've done here, we have in the summer, just before fall, we went out and collected some wooden pallets, and we created a little catio, which is where my cats are at right now. A little catio, just a tiny one. But it's something they enjoy. I put shelves up in there and they run up and down, and I have a cat wheel and everything in there. So and they have a big window, so they're looking outside, they can watch wildlife and whatever. They just can't kill it. Or they can't get, diseases from catching wildlife or getting harmed. For especially some cats, like my male cats are very clumsy and stuff. Like they would essentially not live very long if they were outdoors. So I think all around, it's just better to keep your cats indoors. So please, please, please keep your cats indoors. I think it's better. It benefits everyone. And they're pets, right? Like you're supposed to look after, you're supposed to care for them. The best way to do that is to keep them indoors, keep them away from wildlife, keep them away from harm. Just, it's better. It's better for everyone involved. So that's a very big one. That's something I feel strongly about. The last thing is installing nesting boxes. I might have already mentioned that. I go through a lot of things in my head very rapidly, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself a few times. But yeah, it just goes very fast. Anyway, installing nesting boxes and like little boxes. You can do bat boxes as well if you want to attract bats to, keep certain bug populations down and stuff like that. That's always a really good idea. I would like to do that eventually. I haven't. No, I've seen some bats around here, so that's a lie. But yeah, so you can do that. I haven't seen any owls around here. Like that would be nice to see. I haven't seen, back in Ontario, I saw a lot of owls around all the time. Because I had pet rats at one time. This is off topic, but I had pet rats at one time, and I had a big glass door. And I had my rats like somewhat near the door, so owls would come and look into the window and see that I had rats, and I was like, why are there so many owls around here? And then I was like, oh, I have rats. So if you wanted to attract owls to keep down mice and rat populations, that's a very good natural option. Instead of using all those chemicals and stuff that will eventually kill, you're going to be killing hawks, eagles, and owls if you are using chemicals to kill mice, rats, etc., whatever. So let's just avoid chemicals in general. Let's avoid things that are harmful to anything, right? It's just better. There are other ways you can limit the amount of like mice and rats you may have on your property. Like I know back in Ontario we had a lot of rats around our property, but that's because we had rabbits, so there was a lot of rabbit feed around. So like there's other ways you can cope without putting chemicals around your property. It's also just not good, especially if you have dogs and stuff like that and you're poisoning rats and mice and stuff. Dogs could potentially eat those, and that's just not, like, that's just unnecessary, like, right? You don't want to be potentially poisoning your own animals, okay? Or wildlife. That's just my personal opinion, but whatever. Anyway, but yeah, if you wanted to do a few things to help local wildlife, that is just a few things, and I'm sure you could find a lot more online if you were interested. For me, I definitely like looking into things and learning new things. So I mean, if anyone has suggestions for me as well, we have 14 acres now in the country, so I want to be doing a lot more things to help the wildlife around here. I find that, a lot of people like to have just flat green lawns, like, and to me it's boring. You have nothing there, and are you using that space? Like, is it something that actually benefits you, or do you just like to look at it? And if that's the case, you can find native plants and different things that'll fill your garden and make it look absolutely gorgeous. And plus you're gonna have butterflies move in. Potentially you could have hummingbirds. We have hummingbirds that come in the summer. It's so awesome to see freaking hummingbirds, especially when we didn't have any of those back in, like, we didn't have them near our property in Ontario. So it's beautiful to see all the different wildlife, and we want to keep that wildlife, right? So we can do things to help it. With everyone, with people who are constantly words just escape me, okay? So like people who are, constantly invading wildlife and stuff, and like taking over land and stuff like that. I think it's very important that, like, as we are doing those things, we're also learning how we can help wildlife around us and try to minimize our impact on the environment as much as we can. I think it's very important. There's still a lot of things that I have to learn. There's still a lot of things that I would like to change and do differently to support wildlife. So I mean, even if you have like suggestions for me, like I know I'm not perfect by any means, but I do try my best, and I do try to learn what I can to support wildlife and animals in any way I really can. And yeah, so that's kind of the end here. I don't know really what to add to that, but that's kind of the little bit of research I did, and I just stuff I already knew because I started a few things on my own. I've also planted milkweed and stuff like that for butterflies to come in, because especially for monarchs, I think it's important to support all of these different populations of bugs and animals and stuff. And I know people don't always want to do that, but I assume if you're watching this video, you're interested in different ways to support all of wildlife, not just pretty birds and not just, animals. You want to support bugs and amphibians and all that stuff. So, I don't know. Anyway, those are just the things that I would suggest you try to do if you can, if you have the space, if you have the property, whatever. But if you try to do some of these things, I think it's very, very beneficial, and I think you'll see results fairly quickly. You'll see animals move in, like even with the pond and stuff like that. We put this pond in, and like frogs moved in shortly after, and we've only been here we were only got here, I don't even know when we got here, but it was during the summer, so it already been summer for a while. And we had frogs moving fairly quickly into our tiny little pond that, it was nothing special, but they moved in anyway. Anyway, thank you for watching. And if you have any suggestions or comments or questions or anything, I don't know everything, and I might have messed up a few things while talking, but that's just because my brain is always going, which is why I freeze up and I just forget words. They escape me sometimes. I apologize. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you learned a few things from this video, and I hope you try a few things out to see what kind of bugs and animals will move into your property. I think it's very fun to see all the different things that are in your area, so let me know how that goes.